this episode of the podcast, we talk about how to help give your clients the confidence that they need to be on camera. We also talk about the importance of self-awareness and finally, some of the best hiring advice that I've ever heard. You guys, welcome to this episode. I am Ryan Coral from Studio Sherpas, and this is the Grow Your Video Business podcast, the show for corporate and commercial filmmakers, where we talk about the business of production. We cover topics like sales, marketing, mindset, and process, stuff that has helped me build my own seven-figure video production business over the past 17 years. If that's you, you are in the right place, and I'm so glad that you're here. I am really, really excited about this episode with Nick. I tried getting Nick for a long time to come on this show, and we finally landed him, and he did not disappoint. The gold nuggets that he brought, I need to start charging admission for this show because it's so good. I'm so glad that you're here for this episode. If you're not happy with the clients that you're landing or the budgets that you're working with, they're too small, or you wish that you had a constant stream of new leads coming in, I want you to check out my six-figure commercial filmmaking workshop. This is my best attempt at summing up my 17 years of running this video production business and the things that I've done to consistently find and land profitable 5- and 6-figure projects. In this workshop, you're going to walk away. It's an 80-minute workshop. You're going to walk away with some very actionable to-dos to help you build and scale your video business. And the best part is it is completely free, and you can get access to it today. Stop this podcast and go watch it right now. Just kidding. You can finish this episode because it's so money. StudioSherpas.com/workshop is where you can get access to the six-figure corporate commercial filmmaking workshop. So make sure you grab that. Otherwise, let's jump into this episode. I'm super, super excited about Stop Talking Ryan, and let's roll the episode. Nick, thank you so much for being here on the show today.
Pleasure, man. I'm excited to talk about things I like talking about, production and business. I mean, I think so many people think those two things don't go together, or if you're creative, you shouldn't be good at business, or if you're a business person, you can't be creative. You know, we talked a little bit beforehand, and you said something, and it reminded me, it's like up till recently, like when I was working with clients, I'd say, look, because I have an undergrad degree in finance, I have a law degree. I'll tell people, like, look, I'm a business guy first and a creative second. And I realized I was lying to myself. I was like, I'm a creative guy who had to learn how to do business so I could get back to being creative. And don't fool yourself. This is a business, and if you want to be creative, you got to learn how to do the business. Now, you don't have to do it all yourself. You shouldn't do it all yourself. But don't, I don't know many people who are just wildly creative and have no business sense who you have ever heard of. So, let's not shoot for the moon. Let's learn business and just get better at our crafts, right?
Yeah, and I feel like I've met so many people that are so creative that it's stressful to think about the business side of things because that doesn't come naturally. And I would say for most of us, I mean, you might be an enigma because like that's kind of where you spent time in education and whatnot. But most of us who maybe just went to school to get some kind of a degree or didn't go to school to start thinking about like, I'm super talented, I'm super gifted at like seeing things a different way and being able to tell stories. But to like have to figure out how to monetize that. The thing is, like, it's such a gift to the world to be able to tell these sort of the stories that you're telling and to be held back by, if you didn't get paid for those stories in some way, shape, or form, you wouldn't be able to have created as many films as you had. I mean, that's just the reality to the whole thing. So figuring out how to not just like barely make it, but really make a healthy living so that it's not a question as like, wow, this is a really cool opportunity, but I'm just not sure I'm going to be compensated to be able to, pay my bills and like do some of the things that we want to in the world. It's so important to focus on the business side of what we do.
like it doesn't happen overnight. So like setting expectations and setting incremental goals to try to get to an achievement. Like it's not a bad idea to say, I want to set out to make a feature film or whatever, or a feature documentary or whatever. But just know, like going from zero to that is very, very difficult. And most of the time, unless you're independently wealthy, no one's going to come up to you and say, hey, you know what you should do? I should pay you to make a documentary or film. Like my first film, to be very honest, I made a 7-minute short, my first documentary, about a little boy named Jacob who had Down syndrome, played T-ball. I met his dad in an airport, like totally other story. Just sort of was like a God thing. It was supposed to be. I was looking for a story to tell, and I found this story and I told it. But I spent $15,000 on it, the very first thing I did. And I went to my clients and said, because I own a branding agency and I helped a bunch of them get what they wanted, said, hey, I'm going to go try to do this. I'm going to go try to make a short film. I'm not going to let you invest in it because that would be disastrous for both of us. But would you contribute? Like, would you be willing to contribute $1,000 to $2,000? And I had enough say, oh yeah, I'll give you a couple grand, no problem. And I went out and made the film. I actually got my first 2 Emmy nominations, won my first Emmy. And so my business partner was like, you should do more of that. And so, but I'd failed at so many other things. It really helped me to know that I should stay in my lane. Like I had a bunch of failures in my past. So I think filmmaking has been the easiest thing I've ever done because I approached it differently than I approached many other things. Like I approach it very, very understandingly that there's no way I could make anything anyone would ever want to watch by myself. Like I can shoot a camera, but I'm not a gifted cinematographer. Like I've learned over the years, like I can find an angle, but not like my guys can. I can edit, but I'd rather poke my eyes out with a screwdriver. Like I don't have that kind of attention span. So like if I'm going to make something that I'm going to enjoy making, that the world is going to enjoy watching, I'm going to need other people and I'm going to stay in my own lane. Like I found the story. I got permission to tell the story. I can do the interviews. But other than that, like I'm going to need everyone else to do everything else. And so I just, hired people who were better than me. I mean, that's like one of the biggest secrets in life. Most of you have heard of Jeff Bezos, the CEO of Amazon, right? There's a great book a friend of mine wrote called The Bezos Letters. And it takes Jeff Bezos' shareholder letters and breaks them down into the most common principles. I think it's 13 or 15 principles that are distilled down from all the shareholder letters. And one of the things they talk about is Jeff Bezos and the whole Amazon culture has a principle: never hire someone you don't admire. And that's one of my favorite things I've ever heard. And it doesn't matter whether that's like a cleaning person, like a janitor. Like you should admire how much they really love to serve their audience, their clientele, by keeping things clean. Or an editor, like you should, my editor, I admire him so much. Like I've got like 6 now. I admire them all because it's voodoo. Whatever they do is voodoo. Like I'm okay admitting it. Like I felt a little self-conscious working with ESPN recently when I'm working with the guy who did The Last Dance is who they assigned me to. So like the best sports docuseries of all time, like, don't at me. It's true. Just go with it. And I'm like, and he's like, well, hey, what do you want? I'm like, I don't have an answer to that. Let me get you to my editor. And he's like, cool. But I just stayed in my lane. I just do what I do. I get the interviews. I line everything up and I just turn over a bunch of drives to that guy and he makes me magic. He sends stuff back and asks for my opinion, or I'll remember, oh man, I really want to get this comment in here. I thought this was a cool moment. I thought it was a whatever. But like, it's about like understanding what you're good at and what you want. Like, it's not that you should only do things in life that you're good at. Cause there's like I ran a couple miles this morning. I run usually 5 a day, but today I ran 2 and I lifted. Like lifting weights is not comfortable for anybody. Like there are things you need to get out and stretch yourself, but you were probably born into this world with innate gifts that were probably beaten out of you for 13 to 15 to 17 years in college or in undergrad and school and grade school and all that. And all we really need to do is look to what are those things that were beaten out of us that we were really gifted at when we were from 0 to 5. Like, how do we get back to just doing those things while there are other people that have other giftings that would really, if I could build a team of those people, now we could have success. So really for me, my success has been team building, staying in my lane, and being realistic about what I can accomplish right now. Like when I did my first documentary, it was 7 minutes short. I had no idea. I mean, thank God. I mean, it is, to use a Jay Abraham term, it is geometrically harder to, like, he could say exponentially,
Right.
but he won't. He just said geometrically harder to go from like 3 to 5 minutes to 10 minutes to then go to 30 minutes to then go to 60. Like 60, it's all like exponential jumps. So I would never have been ready to do that. I'd have failed miserably, but I said, you know what? I think this is achievable, and I'm going to get some people who've done some of this stuff before. So anyway, that's a long answer to your short question.
That's a really interesting thought, because I feel like there's, I talk to so many people that are in the industry, a lot of students that are currently going to film school, and, they're reaching out like, man, I like the show, and, it's really helpful, blah, blah, blah. So many of them want to create a feature, right? Or like full-length documentary versus like a 2-minute or a 5-minute or 7-minute, something that's like, man, you could actually do this, right? This is achievable. And if you enjoy the process for a 2-minute piece, if you like it, if people like, maybe they sort of like it or whatever, but you're able to learn, start there, man. Start there. Like, have the dream, of doing a 90-minute whatever, but a 7-minute, like, yeah, like you could do that. And it's like those little boosts of confidence, and then you might find out with all the effort that goes into putting together a 7-minute documentary, like, I actually don't like this. I feel drained, and like, I don't want to do another one. It's like, okay, cool. Like, you figured that out without spending like lots and lots of money and lots of other people's money and wasting lots and lots of other time. I think that's a really good nugget.
It works, man. So to me, it's all about having big dreams, but setting realistic and achievable goals. And so when you got kicked off earlier because the ghost in your machine hated you, I was talking about how I interviewed Daniel Negreanu, and Daniel was a 6-time World Series of Poker champion, and he actually dropped out of high school to play poker, which that conversation could not have been easy. Like, I mean, it's more understandable that could be a career now, but still, like, it just doesn't sound good, right? And so I said, Daniel, what do you think is the number one skill that makes a great poker player? He thought about it for like 30 seconds. He was thoughtful about it. He's like, I think self-awareness. I was like, do you think maybe that's not the key to maybe success in everything? He goes, yeah, you're probably right. And so, like, I think in a lot of cases, like, I meet so many people, particularly in the creative realm, but I meet them in business too, who are just delusional, or I don't know if they think that puffery, as you call it in the legal profession, like just braggadociousness and overconfidence is going to get them anywhere. It doesn't. Usually humility and like, look, whenever I need someone's help, or if I want someone to review something, like, hey man, I did the best I could with this. You might tell me it sucks, and I'm open to that. But would you mind taking a look, rather than like, yo, I just did the freshest, dopest video ever. Check it out. Like, I came from the music business, and I would get that, like, every time I get that email, I would delete it. If I got any other emails like, hey man, I just loved your feedback. What could I do better? And I'll answer every single email like that. But one that comes with the hype, I'm out. And so to me, it's all about, like, what is that self-awareness? Like, what could I really accomplish today or tomorrow? Like, near-term goals. Like, I'm doing a documentary right now with a guy named James Lawrence. He's known as the Iron Cowboy. This is ridiculous. He did 101 full distance triathlons, Ironmans basically, in 101 days in a row. So, like, you can't even fathom that. So, the 2.2 mile swim, 126-mile bike ride, and a full marathon every day. So, like, that's it. And that's it for most people, like most fit people, that's 13 to 14 hours for a one-day event. He did 101 in a row, and he broke his foot on day 7, broke his back on day 59, and finished. Like, he's like, look, I didn't start out doing Ironmans. Like, you can't just say, oh yeah, I'm going to make a feature film. Like, you don't go from there's a reason their app is called From Couch to 5K. It's not from couch to marathon. Like, you're going to have to work a little bit to get like some incremental things. So I would just say, set big goals, like big dreams, but like, let's create some realistic timelines and some waypoints, some milestones as we're going to get ready to go.
That makes it feel achievable, and there's probably more a feeling of like excitement and anticipation versus like, the dread of like, man, I've got so far to go to get there.
Momentum is hard to build. Like, if you want to think about it this way, like, most of us, thankfully, some other people have had different situations, but I bet a lot of people listening to this have sort of done the right things in life, never really been in trouble, maybe don't have everything together. None of us do. We're all a mess, right? But like, like trying in life, but you have like momentum. Like you've been going to work, making money, getting paid more or less for the last however many years. Like that's years and years of momentum. Like think about it this way. Like I think about it often, like if you look at like recidivism and jail, and like I told you to do a lot of work with one of the sheriffs near you, Sheriff Swanson, like when you come out of jail, imagine how hard it is to start over. You have no momentum at all. If anything, you have negative momentum. Like it takes time and patience, and you're going to get really frustrated if you don't set goals that allow you to build momentum and continue to, if you're familiar with the flywheel concept, it takes a lot of momentum to get a flywheel going. But once it's going, like people would look at my career right now and it would look like, I'm a living embodiment of the song, all I do is win, win. But like, that's not true at all, man. Like, it's just like, I fail at a lot and I failed at a lot, but I have done, like, I've built, a foundation of things that if this one doesn't work, but it took me years and years and years of, sacrifice and time and learning skills and relationships. Like it's just not an overnight thing. And that's okay. I just think people need to be okay with that. And so if I can do anything, let me encourage you, like, look, all we get in life is the journey. And you know what this is? This is like, that's what your heart does, right? On any given day. And this is your peaks and your valleys in life. And when it stops, you got a problem, right? When there's no more peaks or valleys, you got a problem. So as hard as it is to understand sometimes, literally all we get is this journey. So like try to find a way to enjoy it and try to set milestones and goals that will make you happy when you achieve them, because you haven't placed yourself out of like the realm of possibility. Like if I set my goal, no matter how hard I try, that I'm going to win the NBA championships next year as a center, it's just not going to happen. Right. So, okay, let's be realistic, self-aware, and let's set some goals like, hey, what could I do between now and then? Could I get better at a jump shot? Could I get better at a free throw? I'm terrible at basketball, so let's not talk about it. But in any event, like, I think part of it is just that self-awareness and that willingness to like come out of that world of hustle, grind. You can have anything you want in the world, influencer, blah, blah. Like, how about we just set some realistic goals and go achieve them and build momentum?
Yeah. Oh man, that's really good. I'm curious to know, like, before, you come from the branding marketing world and then you got into filmmaking, and I think probably there was part of you that like you knew the value of having a team, but I'm curious to know like what would you say like might be in the world of the films that you've done, like what would be one of your greatest superpowers that you've identified?
I can get everyone on board with one vision. So I can say, hey, I want to make this film and here's why I'm excited about it. And from people who contribute money to people who contribute their time, or, a lot of my cinematographers and stuff work on huge productions. They don't normally work on, even though my stuff's pretty big, but it's like my stuff's small compared to a lot of stuff they normally work on. And it's like, but they're like, oh man, I want to be a part of that. Like I want to go watch that dude do 101, Ironmans in a row, right? Like that's interesting. So getting people to catch a vision for something, and also being able to see the vision through. Yeah. So I always tell people like, hey, here's my best expectation for this, but here's where it could fail, just so you know, because I don't ever want us to have not had that conversation if it does fail, because sometimes that stuff happens in life. Like sometimes, if he wouldn't have finished after day 59 breaking his back, like still would have made a great movie. I still can't believe the guy finished. We actually didn't film the whole. I got the call after the first 101 days were done, which was, I'm sort of glad I didn't have to deal with all 101 days. But it's getting people on casting a vision and saying, hey, if you come on this ride with me, here's what you can expect, and it's going to be awesome. Here's what you can expect if things go wrong, but no matter what, we're going to see this thing through, and been able to do it consistently so that it's very believable now. No one goes, no one anymore tells me, well, they might be like, that's the dumbest idea I've ever heard, but you probably will do it. So like, it's not just like it's not someone who's never done a film before going, I'm going to come in, I'm going to win Oscars. I'm going to EGOT, I'm going to get an Emmy, Grammy, Oscar, Tony for this whole project. Like, it's none of that. It's like building getting people on board with a vision, getting them excited about it, but then executing on that and showing them that they were wise to bet on me.
So it seems like you definitely have the skill set of a good producer. Definitely a good sales guy, to be able to get people on board and to buy the vision, right? I mean, that's definitely sales related. But I'm curious too, because you come from I love branding, marketing. Like that world is fascinating to me because it's such a superpower that I'm so far, like I respect it so much. I love when I see people that are really good at that. So I feel like there's another, for you to see the stories and the potential. Like, how would you describe that? Because I would for sure say that's probably one of your strongest gifts, because for you to be able to see that and then cast a vision, right? Those are two separate things, I think.
Let me relieve you of your tension. Look, branding is nothing more than storytelling. A brand is simply a story. Your brand is your story, and a great brand is a story other people want to tell for you. So, like, it is very simple. So you're already good at it. Nobody told you the secret. Yeah. Like, people are like, oh, you need to get logos and look and feel. I'm like, that's all. Like, it's important. Like, if you want to show up as the best in the world and people come to your website and it's the equivalent of a digital slum, people are probably gonna be like, probably not so much, right? But so you got to have things in order. Like, people want to know that you're put together in a way, right? But a great brand is just a great story. And marketing is really just having a bunch of people telling the world that they should be working with you and sharing your story. And so when I look for these stories, like, where everybody misses it, not everyone misses it, but the people who miss it, they miss it because they're focused on the wrong thing. The thing is never the thing. The thing is always the people involved in the thing. That is the beauty. That is the mess. That is the tragedy. That is the joy. It's always the people. So if you tell me that you want me to do a commercial, whatever, about, bottled water. My wife and I call this bougie water. If you want me to do a bougie water commercial, like, I'm not going to focus on the water, just because that's boring. Like, I can't really express to you. It all tastes the same anyway. But like, I could share with you the really cool story of how the person who discovered this spring discovered it, and what it took to go from people never thinking that people would ever buy water, which is basically free, in a bottle. Like, now that's interesting, and the struggle and the joy and the whatever. And so it's all about human stories and telling those in a way. And even if you're marketing a product or service, it's all about what was the transformation it created for a human, and what was their struggle beforehand. What was their, how did it open up their life in a different way? So it's always the human thing. And so for me, as I really cut my teeth on business storytelling and sharing stories of entrepreneurs just like myself. And I realized, like, one of the second film I ever did was about a guy who owns a used car dealership in North Carolina. And it was fascinating, like, how he worked his way up and bought it from his dad. And he's now built a pro wrestling thing. Like, it's people, man. People are fascinating. And so when I realized that, like, if you dig in with somebody, everybody has a story. And most people will say, oh, I don't have a story. And the great news is, that typically means they're not narcissistic egomaniacs, which I like. However, most people don't think they have a story because they're thinking of it the wrong way. Most people think like that their story, if they had a story, would be about them. Yeah. Well, that's never interesting. The only story that's ever interesting is a story that's about the listener. So, like, even if I share my story with you, it's only worth you listening to if it's going to reveal something new to you, share with you how you might attack a situation of adversity. If you're learning from it, like, right? So if it's about me, I shouldn't tell the story. If it's about you, I'd be a fool not to tell the story. I used this example the other day with my team. I'm like, look, if me and you, Ryan, we're out hiking somewhere and I see a rattlesnake and I know that it can, like, the damage it can do to you, I would go like, hey, Ryan, don't let that snake bite you, because it's more important to me that you know that than it is important to me that I'm self-conscious about what my hair looks like, or do I have my glasses on the right way, or am I dressed the right way? Like, so when your story is more than about you, when it's able to help other people, your ego gets out of the way and you just start telling it. But most of us hyper focus on ourselves, right, in this egocentric world. So what I would just say is, if you want a great brand, if you want great marketing, just figure out what have you struggled with, accomplished, figured out, failed at in life, that if you were to share that story, it would help other people. And it's fascinating what comes out of it. And it doesn't have to be like opening a pro wrestling ring thing. It's like everyone says, I don't have a story. Like I interviewed this lady recently, like, I don't have a story. And I interview her. Turns out, she was born in China and she lived in a tent encampment for 3 years on the streets of China after an earthquake. And I'm like, you don't have a story? Like, I grew up in a home, air conditioned, like, so it's like this thing because we lived it, we don't honor it. And that's a really easy thing because like if you're born 7'7" and you can dunk a basketball, you're like, yeah, just born this way. There's nothing special about that, which is cool. I mean, that's neat. However, it is our job at some point with self-awareness to stop and say, hey, maybe what am I not only really bad at, but what am I pretty good at? Like, what do people value? What do people come to me for? How do I help people around me? Okay, now let me focus a little bit more on, yes, what were the elements and the events in my life, positive and negative, that led me to here today? And how might other people learn from those if I share them? That's a story. That's a brand people want to hear.
Dude. Oh man, that's so good. So here's a funny story. This is a little embarrassing. I finished reading Jay Abraham's book, How to Get Everything Out of Everything You Want. I think that's the title. Super powerful book.
Actually, get everything you can out of all you got. Yes.
Yes. I've listened to it 2 different times. Just fascinating. So I was like, man, how amazing would it be like to reach out to Jay and like to tell his story? So I was like, wait, actually, maybe somebody has already done this. They better not have. And I do a Google search, and the first thing that pops up is the interview where Jay's interviewing you. And I'm like, oh, okay, so I guess there is, because it's about his documentary, the Jay Abraham story. Is that what it's called? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So then I'm like, okay, who is this joker that stole my idea and did this with Jay? And that's my perspective. And I normally have like a good heart, but I thought I had a great idea. I was really excited about it. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to watch this interview and just see what a tool this guy, this Nick guy.
I do the same thing for the record. It's okay. It's okay.
So I start watching the interview, and Jay's setting the whole thing up and just talking you up. And I'm like, blah, blah. Who cares about all these awards? I don't care about the awards. But then you start talking, and then I start leaning in, and I'm like, ooh, I like what this guy's saying. And then, dude, as you were just talking, I wrote a quote. I'm probably going to mess it up, but I watched this. I think I reached out months ago to get you for an interview, but I've used this thing that you said toward the end of that interview, where you said something about the ideas like, when you realize that your message is more important than yourself, like that's when you can really serve the world. It's like we get caught up on like, what do we sound like? What do we look like? We haven't been on enough interviews, or we haven't been in front of the camera enough to really feel comfortable and confident to deliver this thing, like whatever that thing is. But dude, like to realize like, if you can help people with your message, so in this world of filmmaking, if we can help people, if we can help businesses tell better stories, to get more clients, to get the right clients, to connect with the right kind of people, if we can serve people by the way that we see the world through the lens, like the literal lens, right, we are doing a disservice, right? And it's like, well, I don't have the confidence. I can't reach out to Jay Abraham. Like, he's big and famous, and like, there's no way he's going to say yes. And like, maybe after I reach out to somebody that's a lot like not nearly as big and whatever, then maybe I'll get the confidence. It's like, dude, if you really feel moved and compelled, like, do not let the things that you believe that really more times than not just aren't true stop you from conveying and sharing that message. So thank you, because I thought those were super, super powerful words.
Man, my pleasure. And I couldn't agree more. Look, I mean, we're all uniquely prepared to do these things in life. It's funny, I've known Jay for years, and what a trip doing that story was. It was a blast. And look, the key is just whenever you do that, just be prepared to over deliver, right? As long as you are self-aware of what you can and can't do. And like when I went to Jay, I said, same thing I told Dickie V and Rudy when I did Rudy's documentary, I'm like, look, we ain't going to get rich. Not going to happen. Like, so let me just put that out there first. If you're going to do this for the money, don't do it. But like, I can honor your time. But we can do, it will promote you. It'll do some other ththings. Every now and then, you know, we did make some money finally on one recently, but like, you know, you just got to be honest and you over deliver. And so Jay now he's been a friend before that, but man, it's almost embarrassing when I ask Jay for something. He's like, oh man, I'll do anything you want ever. You just tell me when. You've done so much for me. I'll just do anything. I'm like, but Jay, I want to pay. Like, he's like, don't worry about it. Like, I owe you so much. I'm like, I just did what I did for you, but okay, I love it. You know, and he's a brilliant guy. And yeah, you just gotta look. You gotta learn and grow in your craft. You gotta not outkick your coverage, to use a sports term. You know, you got to make sure that if you promise something. Now, I have promised things before that I didn't know how I was going to deliver, but I was committed to delivering. Yeah. Like when I met Larry King. I bought a charity breakfast to have breakfast with Larry King, and great. We don't have time to go into all, but it was a great conversation. Basically, from there, I developed a relationship and said, hey, I'd like to tell your story, but don't say yes or no because you never see anything I've done. I FedExed him some stuff, and he's like, man, I like this. It's good. Like, so then his manager connects with me and says, oh, no, he already promised this other friend of his he could do his story. I was like, okay. So I said, hey, Larry, do you want to be I can't do this, but would you be willing to be on my internet TV show? He's like, of course. I said, okay. So I created an internet TV show. So then I have Larry on my new internet TV show, and I tell my editor, like, hey, make it a doc. And so then I go to Larry, hey, this thing came out really good, but it's not what we talked about. So I want to show it to you to make sure you're good with it. So I'm having to fly to LA, go to Larry's house. I'm watching Larry's life flash before his eyes, and at the interview he goes, excellent work. Now, what do we do with it? I'm like, well, hey, Larry, it's a little different than we talked about, but I'm going to do a bunch of these. Why don't you just partner with me on this series? Like, done, send the paperwork. So I went from charity breakfast to Larry King as my business partner by like pushing the envelope a little bit every time. Yeah. But like, I always made sure I got permission in the end. And like, I didn't have an internet TV show, but I was willing to create one if Larry King would sit down with me. So it's okay to do those things, but you got to have the commitment and not flake, right? I mean, you got to be willing to do it if you say you're going to do it. Yeah.
Dude, brilliant. I love it. Man, our time has been too short. All these
Let's do it again.
Let's totally do it again. Thank you for sharing your gift with the world, man. I've been inspired and encouraged by it, and I know so many other people have been. Where can people follow along with the latest and greatest of what you got going on?
All my socials are at Nick Nanton on everything, and then also nicknanton.com. You can sort of see our latest films and things like that. You know, we have our branding agency, the Celebrity Branding Agency. We help thousands of business owners. I have a team that runs that in place, but it works for everybody, and you can just learn for free from there. And then most of the stuff you'll see me posting about is mostly, films and stories and people I'm working with. But happy to help, dude. And thank you for having me on. I'm glad I didn't turn you off with my Jay Abraham interview, but I do the same thing. Like when someone has my idea, damn it, like what? And unfortunately, as you know, most of the time you could have done a better job. Most of the time it's not that great, and you're like, right? Damn it, why didn't I get there first? And those people give filmmakers and creatives a bad name because they under-delivered. And so it's guys like me and you and everyone else listening. It's our job to over-deliver and share with the rest of the world that our craft is valuable. We can shift the narrative of anything if we tell stories responsibly. And so I love it. It's been fun, and I'd love to come back on, man. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. All right, brother. Thank you so much.
It's my pleasure. We'll talk soon.
All right, you made it this far. Here's my question. Did you love the episode as much as I did? Nick is just awesome. You can get links to the show notes that we referred to, find out more about Nick inside of the show notes. So wherever you're watching this, there's the show notes where you can get the links and all that stuff. If you're watching this on YouTube or Facebook, I would love to know, what's your big takeaway? Was there something that Nick said that was really challenging, or a light bulb moment that you had? I would love to hear that. Leave a comment. You can always reach me via email, ryan@studiosherpas.com. You can find us on our socials at Grow Your Video Business, or I am also at Ryan Coral. Get plugged into our community if you're not already. You can go to studiosherpas.com/community. We've got a free community where you can get connected with a bunch of other filmmakers where these people are like the best of the best. Tons of help going on inside of this group. If you've got what you feel are dumb questions, it is a safe place to bring those questions and hopefully get answers to some of the things that might be stopping you from growing your business, maybe from hiring an employee, figuring out what you should be charging, go there and get plugged in. Would love to see you inside. And that's all I have for this week. And it was kind of a lot. It was really good. Thanks for being here. Appreciate you so much. And I will talk to you on next week's episode. See ya.